What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Leadway Wealth Builders podcast. If you haven't listened before, my name is Chris Rickenbaugh, and I am documenting my journey in real estate and business and also talking a little bit about travel hacking and personal finance. This is episode 131, and we're going to be talking about my 5-month eviction finally being resolved on a flip I bought back in December. So, before we hop into that, go check me out on social media at leadway.wealth on Instagram and TikTok. And then if you're listening to this podcast, you can find all the other links to it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and Podbean on the Figuring It Out Finance website. So, busy morning. Checked out all the flips. Finally, making a little bit of progress towards buying some other ones. We have some in the pipeline, some offers out, just waiting to really finalize some numbers and be able to move forward because, right now, everything that I'm hearing, you just got to be way more careful on buying deals. So, and that's really what I'm trying to do. So, for this one, I've had a 5-month eviction going, and if you tuned in back to episode 122, that was the last court date that I had almost a month ago. I think it was a month ago. And basically, the resolution of that one was that we got the lease tossed. So it put us in a little bit of a predicament, but I'm going to run back through the entire thing just so if you haven't listened before, you can get the full rundown. So we did end up getting the eviction resolved. We're going to be able to get the lady out, but here it is from beginning to end. So we bought this property back in December, and what happened with it, we knew there was somebody living in it. We knew they were on a month-to-month lease and that they were the past owner. So we come to find out that it was a past owner who was going into foreclosure, was saved from foreclosure by a wholesaler who caught up their arrears, and then they go and sell the house to somebody like me. So we acquired this property through New Western, and I ended up getting in contact with the actual wholesaler who kind of helped us with this process, got us in contact with the lady living in the house, and she was under the impression that she could live there for the rest of her life, which is a problem because if our goal is to flip houses, we give them the 30-day notice, we get them out, and then we flip the house. So it cuts us down on our timeline quite a bit, knowing there's somebody in the house, but not impossible. We just have to have nothing go wrong during that time. So what happened was we gave the notice. We showed up in court, and I didn't bring the exact documents to be able to show how the transaction went, because the crazy part was, so the guy bought it from the lady, or the wholesaler bought it from the lady in his business name. So turns out his business had actually been dissolved a few days before that transaction, or maybe it was a month or two. But anyway, it was dissolved. So he couldn't be able to sell the house to anybody else. So then what he did, they went back a couple days before the actual house was sold through his personal name. So then it went from his personal name to New Western getting it under contract, and then I purchased it from New Western. So obviously we didn't know the past details or anything like that, just kind of the cliff notes that there was somebody living in it. We got in contact. We said, hey, this is the situation. Here's what we're doing. And, they just kind of decided not to go along with that and still said, well, I was told that I could live here for the rest of my life. And it's like, well, I never would have bought the house if that was the case. So basically there was a lease in place. It didn't say any amount, which is what happened in the court case last time, which is what ended up getting thrown out. Not due to the invalidness of the LLC in the month-to-month lease. It was because the lady's name, they said it was a fake signature, which got it thrown out, which was actually better for our case. So this is where it gets crazy. So we finally resolved that I am the person who owns the house, or my entity owns the house. And then So once we clear that up, we were able to go through and really figure out the details of this situation. She's trying to say she got tricked when she didn't really get tricked, because either somebody like him was going to buy it or the bank was going to take it back. So she was in a really bad position. But because she signed this lease, we had to get this thrown out because we're in eviction court, which is why they go off terms and contracts and everything like that. So based on the terms in the contract, there was nothing there for them to do, and it was a false lease. So that got thrown out, which put us in a different position. So that was the end of 122 to where, and now this is the new part of where we are now. So we determined that she's a tenancy at will because I did not sign her to a lease and she did not leave when we wanted her to get out. So technically she's on no lease, she's not paying anything, and she's living in the house for free, which is a problem, and she's not communicating. So based on this, what happened was we brought it to trial today. We said, hey, there is no tenancy or tenant-landlord relationship because I never put her on a lease, and then it was just that past person. So, we honored that through whatever their term was. They stayed there, and then there's no payment, no communication, no nothing. So they determined that there was no tenant-landlord relationship and that she was trespassing. So trespassing, what we can do, since we got that settled, and basically they're like, hey, that's not what this court is for, you have to go over here. But the problem is with the courts and the justice system in this way, if we went to the magistrate before, they would have told us to go to the normal court. So we had to go to the court first, and then now we can go to the magistrate saying, hey, this person is trespassing on my property, she needs to be removed. So that's going to be what happens next week, is that we do the removal from the property if that person is still living there. Driven by, can't really tell. To me, it doesn't look like anybody's living there. Everything's pretty unkept as is. But that is going to be the next steps for us, because we finally determined that she is trespassing, means everything in this is resolved. So hopefully we'll be able to get into the property within the next week or two, be able to get some demos started. And so this property in specific, I'm going to be ending up keeping it just because of the timeline. So normally if there's a tenant in there on a lease, or we're only buying month-to-month leases because I can't wait 3 or 4 months on a hard money loan because it's only for 6 months with a 3-month extension. So for this, we're going to have to use that 3-month extension. But what we're going to do is we're going to put really all hands on deck and be able to get in there, get the job done, and then I'm going to refinance the property and end up keeping it, even though that's not my strategy, not what I bought it for. But that's the only way to kind of resolve this, as to not lose money and not get really penalized by the lender. So the house is going to be ending up getting kept, and we'll be in there in the next week or two to start some demo and start the renovation. So really, really interesting. Lots of learning through this whole thing, just learning the court system, how it all works, and just being able to go through that, because I saw where there were so many different mistakes that I made, and that I need to show up that court with all the information. I got to have it printed out. If they ask for numbers, I got to have it really detailed, because they're going to be able to question everything. And if you have proof, everything's documented, everything's printed out, you can present it. But if you don't have that, you're putting yourself in a really bad situation. So lots of learning during this whole thing. Glad that I was able to get resolved, and super pumped to be able to get started on the renovation after 5 months. So that is the resolution of the 5-month eviction. So next week, we will be having another interview with a local real estate agent in the area who's starting to, get a lot of traction. So super excited for him to be able to come on the podcast and tell tell his story and about what he's doing and about where he's going. So make sure you tune in for that. That'll be episode 133. So that's all I got for this episode. So thank you so much for tuning in. And this is Chris Rickenbaugh signing off.